Among the 12 tribes of Israel, there is one whose story begins with tears and ends in glory. Born along the journey between promises, his first breath coincided with his mother's last. Benjamin, the son of the right hand, bore from birth the weight of being the final link to beloved Rachel. If you've ever wondered why this youngest son of Jacob triggered such profound protection, or how a tribe nearly extinct rose again to produce Israel's first king and even the greatest apostle of the early church, this is a story you need to know. From an overprotected baby to a tribe of fierce warriors, from the brink of extinction to the cradle of leaders who changed the course of biblical history, the journey of Benjamin is a testament to how God transforms tragedies into triumphs. Get ready to discover how the smallest of Jacob's sons became a key piece in the divine plan, leaving a legacy that echoes through millennia. The story of Benjamin begins on a crucial family journey. After Jacob's tense reunion with his brother Esau, the patriarchal family continued their path through the land of Canaan. In Genesis 35:16 we read, "Then they moved on from Bethel. While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty." This journey was not just a simple move. It was part of the fulfillment of the divine promise. Before departing, Jacob had received a renewal of God's promise at Bethel. God appeared to him and confirmed his new name, Israel, promising, "The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." This promise resonated in Jacob's heart as he led his large family, wives, concubines, children, and servants, toward Ephrath, which would later be known as Bethlehem. The journey was arduous, especially for Rachel, who was in an advanced stage of pregnancy. The caravans of that time moved slowly, facing treacherous roads, desert heat by day and cold by night. For a pregnant woman, these conditions posed a considerable challenge. Yet, there was an expectation of joy. After years of waiting for her first son, Joseph, Rachel was now about to give birth to her second son with Jacob. However, the scene quickly shifted from expectation to tragedy. Genesis 35:16-17 continues, "Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty, and as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, 'Don't despair, for you have another son.' Rachel's labor became complicated quickly. The midwife's words reveal a grave danger. She was trying to encourage Rachel amid an evidently life-threatening situation. The biblical text does not detail the exact nature of the complications, but we know they were severe. The midwife, using her experience, tried to assure Rachel that despite the suffering, she would successfully give birth. These midwives were experienced and respected women in ancient communities, often responsible not only for the birth itself, but also for caring for the mother before and after childbirth. In her final moments, Rachel found the strength to name her son. Genesis 35:18 tells us, as she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. The name Ben-Oni means son of my sorrow or son of my affliction. This name reflected the physical and emotional agony Rachel was experiencing. In her final maternal act, she expressed the deep connection between her suffering and the life she was bringing into the world. Jacob, however, could not allow his son to bear a name associated with pain and death. In an act of paternal love and hope for the future, he changed the name to Benjamin, which means son of the right hand, or son of happiness. In the culture of the ancient Near East, the right hand symbolized strength, skill, and favor. By renaming his son, Jacob was declaring his wish for this boy to be blessed and prosperous, not marked by the tragedy of his birth. Names in Hebrew culture carried immense significance. More than mere designations, they often represented the character, destiny, or circumstances related to the person. Jacob's change of name was not just a matter of preference, but a prophetic declaration about his son's future. This practice of renaming people at significant moments is seen repeatedly in the Bible. Abram becoming Abraham, Sarai becoming Sarah, and Jacob himself receiving the name Israel. The name Benjamin would ultimately shape the identity of the tribe descending from him, a tribe known for its courage, military strength, and privileged position. The right hand was the side of honor and protection, and the tribe of Benjamin would often hold a prominent position in battles and the defense of Israel. The narrative continues with Rachel's death and burial. Genesis 35:19-20 records, "So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath," that is, Bethlehem. Over her tomb, Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day that pillar marks Rachel's tomb. The burial site of Rachel became a significant landmark in Israel's history. Located on the road to Bethlehem, this site would be mentioned again centuries later when the prophet Jeremiah spoke of the voice heard in Ramah. Rachel weeping for her children, a metaphor for the suffering of the exile, Jeremiah 31:15. The pillar erected by Jacob demonstrated not only his love for Rachel, but also the importance of keeping her memory alive for future generations. Notably, the author of Genesis notes that this monument still existed to this day, indicating that centuries after Rachel's death, her tomb remained a place of reverence for the Israelites. It is believed that the traditional site of Rachel's tomb still exists near Bethlehem, although the current structure dates from much later periods. Rachel's death had a profound impact on Jacob and the entire family. She was the beloved wife for whom Jacob had worked 14 years, and her loss left an immense void. For the older children, particularly Joseph, the death of their mother meant the loss of protection within the complex family dynamics. And for the newborn Benjamin, it meant growing up without knowing his mother, relying entirely on the care of others, likely Bilhah, Rachel's servant, or Leah, Jacob's first wife. Benjamin held a unique position in Jacob's family. In Genesis 35:24, when the Bible lists the 12 sons of Jacob, we read, "The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin." While all of Jacob's other sons were born in Paddan Aram, in Laban's household, Benjamin was the only one born in the land of Canaan, the Promised Land. This fact gave him a special distinction in the context of God's promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As the second and last son of the beloved Rachel, Benjamin held a special place in Jacob's heart. He was the only living link to the woman Jacob loved most. Leah's sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, formed the largest group. The sons of the servants, Dan and Naphtali from Bilhah, Gad and Asher from Zilpah, had a lower status. Joseph, Rachel's firstborn, was already the declared favorite, receiving the coat of many colors. But after the supposed death of Joseph, that special love would shift to Benjamin. Jacob's attachment to Benjamin intensified dramatically after Joseph's loss. For years, Jacob believed that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. This was the lie his other sons told to cover up the fact that they had sold Joseph into slavery. The trauma of this loss made Jacob cling even more to his youngest son. Jacob's overprotection is evident in Genesis 42:4, when his sons prepare to travel to Egypt to buy food during the famine. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him. This hesitation reveals the deep fear that gripped Jacob, the fear of losing this last son of his beloved Rachel as well. Jacob's words in Genesis 42:38 are even more revealing. "My son will not go down there with you. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm comes to him on the journey you are taking, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow." This poignant statement shows the depth of his pain and attachment. For Jacob, losing Benjamin would be a blow from which he would not recover. It would, in his own words, take him to the grave in sadness. Benjamin's story takes on new dimensions when a severe famine strikes the land of Canaan. In Genesis 42:1-2 we read, "When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, 'Why do you just keep looking at each other?' He continued, 'I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die.' The situation was desperate. The famine had spread throughout the region, threatening the survival of the patriarchal family. Jacob made a crucial decision at this moment. He sent 10 of his sons to Egypt but kept Benjamin at home. Genesis 42:3-4 clarifies, "Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him." This decision reveals Jacob's deep anxiety and his excessive protection toward Benjamin. Jacob's extreme protection was understandable. He had already lost Joseph, Rachel's first son, and could not bear the thought of risking Benjamin's safety. The journey to Egypt was not without dangers. Bandits, harsh weather, and other threats could arise along the way. Moreover, there was uncertainty about how they would be received in a foreign land during a time of food crisis. Benjamin's absence did not go unnoticed by Joseph, who now held a position of great power in Egypt, though he was not recognized by his brothers. When the 10 brothers presented themselves before him, Joseph immediately noticed the absence of his only full brother. This absence would become the central point of Joseph's plan to test his brothers and eventually reveal his identity. Joseph saw an opportunity to test his brothers' character and see if they had changed since they sold him into slavery. In Genesis 42:14-15, he accuses his brothers. Joseph said to them, "It is just as I told you, you are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here." This demand was strategic. Joseph wanted to see Benjamin and assess how his brothers treated their father's new favorite. To ensure his brothers would return with Benjamin, Joseph took a drastic measure, holding one of them as a hostage. In Genesis 42:19-20 he orders, "If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified and that you may not die." Date. The choice fell on Simeon, who remained imprisoned in Egypt while the others returned to Canaan. Joseph's demand caused distress among the brothers, who immediately connected this hardship to their past crime against Joseph. In Genesis 42:21, they confess among themselves, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us." This confession marks the beginning of a process of repentance and transformation that would unfold throughout the narrative. When the brothers returned to Canaan and reported the Egyptian governor's demand, Jacob reacted with despair. In Genesis 42:36-38, he laments, "Their father Jacob said to them, 'You have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me.' Then Reuben said to his father, 'You may put both of my sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Entrust him to my care, and I will bring him back.' But Jacob said, 'My son will not go down there with you. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm comes to him on the journey you are taking, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow.'" Jacob's lament reveals his perception that the world was conspiring against him, taking away his sons one by one. Reuben's offer to sacrifice his own sons as a guarantee was extreme and demonstrates the seriousness of the situation, but it also reveals a Reuben trying to redeem himself from previous failures as the firstborn. Even so, Jacob remained unyielding, refusing to allow Benjamin to travel to Egypt. Jacob's fear was existential. Losing Benjamin would mean losing his last link to Rachel, the woman he truly loved. His words about going down to the grave in sorrow were not mere dramatic hyperbole, but a sincere expression that such a loss would mean the end of any joy or purpose in his life. The situation remained at an impasse until the famine worsened, forcing the family to consider a second trip to Egypt. In Genesis 43:1-2, we read, "Now the famine was severe in the land. So when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, 'Go back, buy us a little food.' The survival of the family was at stake, and a new journey became inevitable. It was then that Judah, Jacob's fourth son, took a leadership position. In Genesis 43:3-5, he confronts the reality of the situation. But Judah said to him, 'The man solemnly warned us, saying, "You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you." No, if you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, "You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you." Judah's intervention is significant. Unlike Reuben, who offered the lives of his children as a guarantee, Judah takes personal responsibility. In Genesis 43:8-9, he declares, "Then Judah said to Israel his father, 'Send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and also our little ones. I myself will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever.'" This moment marks an important transformation in Judah, who years earlier had suggested selling Joseph into slavery. Now, he offers himself as a personal guarantee for Benjamin's safety. This assurance finally convinces Jacob, whose resistance could no longer prevail against the looming threat of famine over the entire family. Reluctantly, Jacob gives in. In Genesis 43:11-14, he instructs his sons. Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man. Take your brother also and arise. Go back to the man, and may God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may release your other brother and Benjamin. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved." His final phrase reveals a resigned acceptance that fate was beyond his control. Jacob's blessing, "May God Almighty give you mercy," expresses his deep dependence on divine protection at this critical moment. He entrusts Benjamin not only to his brother's care, but ultimately to God's providence. When the brothers arrived in Egypt with Benjamin, Joseph's reaction was immediate and intense. In Genesis 43:16, we read, "When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, 'Take these men to my home and slaughter an animal and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon.'" This invitation to a banquet was extraordinary, a sign of special honor that confused the brothers, who still feared being accused of theft. The encounter between Joseph and Benjamin was particularly emotional. In Genesis 43:29-30, the narrative describes, "Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, 'Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?' And he said, 'God be gracious to you, my son.' So now his heart yearned for his brother. So Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there." Joseph's emotion was overwhelming. After more than 20 years, he finally saw his only full brother, the son of the same mother, Rachel. During the banquet, Joseph showed special favor to Benjamin. Genesis 43:34 records, "Then he took servings to them from before him, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as any of theirs, so they drank and were merry with him." This dramatic distinction, a portion 5 times larger, was a test. Joseph wanted to observe if his brothers would react with envy to the preferential treatment given to Benjamin, just as they had reacted to the favoritism he himself received from their father years earlier. The brothers were also surprised by the organization of the banquet. In Genesis 43:33 we read, "And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked in astonishment at one another." The fact that they were seated in exact order of age astonished them. How could this Egyptian governor know their precise ages? This was yet another clue to Joseph's true identity, though they still could not understand. After the banquet, Joseph prepared a final and decisive test. In Genesis 44:1-2, he ordered, "And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, Fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. Also put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his grain money." So he did, according to the word that Joseph had spoken. This plan would place Benjamin in an apparently guilty position of theft, the ultimate test to see if his brothers would abandon Benjamin to save themselves, as they had done with Joseph earlier. The secret placement of the silver cup in Benjamin's baggage was not an act of malice, but a deliberate strategy to create a crisis situation that would reveal the true character of his brothers. The cup was not a common item. Likely it was a valuable ceremonial object, possibly used for libations or divination, a common practice in ancient Egypt, although Joseph, as a worshipper of the true God, did not practice divination. When the brothers' caravan left the city, Joseph sent his steward to catch up with them and accuse them of theft. As planned, the search revealed the cup in Benjamin's luggage. In Genesis 44:12-13, we read, "And he searched, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes, and each loaded his donkey and returned to the city." The tearing of garments was an extreme sign of anguish in ancient culture, a gesture that demonstrated deep despair and mourning. This immediate reaction was significant. Instead of abandoning Benjamin to his fate and continuing their journey home, all the brothers returned to the city with him. This was already a sign of change, a demonstration that they were not willing to abandon their younger brother as they had done with Joseph years before. When they returned to Joseph's presence, a dramatic scene unfolded. In Genesis 44:14-16 we read, "And Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, for he was still there, and they fell before him to the ground. And Joseph said to them, What is this deed that you have done? Do you not know that a man like me can certainly practice divination?" Then Judah said, "What shall we say to my lord? What shall we speak? And how can we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Behold, we are my lord's slaves, both we and he in whose hand the cup has been found." Notably, it is Judah who takes the lead at this critical moment. His offer that all of them become slaves demonstrates a spirit of family solidarity that was absent in the past. Joseph, however, insists that only Benjamin should remain as a slave. "The man in whose hand the cup was found, he shall be my servant. But as for you, go up in peace to your father." It is at this point that Judah delivers one of the most moving speeches in the Bible. In Genesis 44:18-34, he recounts in detail his father's situation, the special love for Benjamin, and finally, offers himself as a substitute. "Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my lord, and let the boy go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the boy is not with me, lest I see the evil that would overtake my father?" This speech reveals a complete transformation in Judah. The man who had suggested selling Joseph as a slave now offers to become a slave in Benjamin's place. The mention of Jacob's special love for Benjamin is not made with resentment, but with understanding and respect. Judah fully grasps that losing Benjamin would destroy his father, and he is willing to sacrifice his own freedom to prevent such a tragedy. This demonstration of selflessness and true change of character finally breaks Joseph's resistance. In Genesis 45, 1-3, we read, "Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried, 'Make everyone go out from me.' So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud, so that the Egyptians heard it and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, 'I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?' But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence." The moment of revelation was intensely emotional. Joseph, who had maintained his composure during all previous encounters, now wept openly. The question, "Is my father still alive?" reveals that despite his power and position in Egypt, his greatest concern was still his family. After calming his frightened brothers, Joseph turns especially to Benjamin. In Genesis 45, 14-15, we read, "Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After that, his brothers talked with him." The embrace between Joseph and Benjamin represents a particularly poignant moment. The two sons of Rachel, separated for years, finally reunited. This family reconciliation, in which Benjamin played a central yet passive role, marks a turning point in the history of the people of Israel. The patriarchal family, now reconciled, would be ready to settle in Egypt, where they would grow and become a nation over the next 400 years. Benjamin's story in the Genesis narratives demonstrates how God works through seemingly tragic circumstances. The death of Rachel, the separation of Joseph, the famine in Canaan, to accomplish his providential purposes. The boy whose birth caused his mother's death, and whose life was so protected by his father, inadvertently became the catalyst for healing deep family wounds and the reunification of the future nation of Israel. Before departing this world, Jacob gathered his 12 sons to impart prophetic blessings that would shape the destiny of their tribes. When it came to his youngest son, Jacob spoke revealing words about his future. In Genesis 49:27, we read, "Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoil." This brief but powerful statement encapsulated the character of the future tribe. The metaphor of the wolf was particularly significant in the culture of the ancient Near East. The wolf was known for its ferocity, agility, and ability to hunt in packs. Unlike the lion, associated with Judah, which represented royalty and dominant power, the wolf symbolized a shrewd, swift, and fierce warrior. This image of the wolf perfectly captured the essence of the small but potent tribe that Benjamin would produce. The warrior nature prophesied in this blessing would repeatedly manifest throughout Israel's history. The Benjamites would become known for their exceptional military skills, including prowess with weapons and innovative combat tactics. Although smaller in physical number, they compensated with bravery and ferocity on the battlefield. The second part of the blessing, "In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoil," suggested a cycle of conquest followed by prosperity. The morning represented the early stages of the tribe's history, when they would demonstrate their military capability, while the evening symbolized the later period of stability and sharing of the spoils. This prophecy would be fulfilled not only in the literal battles fought by the Benjamites, but also in the contributions they would make to the nation of Israel throughout the generations. Centuries after Jacob's blessing, when the Israelites conquered the promised land under Joshua's leadership, each tribe received its portion of the territory. In Joshua 18:11 we find, "The lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families. and the border of their lot came out between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. This location was not a coincidence, but part of the divine plan for the role Benjamin would play in Israel's history. The territory granted to the tribe of Benjamin was relatively small, but extremely important from a strategic and religious standpoint. In Joshua 18:12-20, the Bible provides a detailed description of the borders of this territory, which stretched from the Jordan River to the Western Mountains. Despite its modest size, this land included some of the most strategic passages and trade routes in the region. Benjamin's geographical location was truly unique, situated precisely between the tribes of Judah to the south and the tribe of Joseph, Ephraim, to the north. This intermediary position gave Benjamin a crucial role as a bridge between the two main powers that would eventually emerge in Israel. Throughout history, Benjamin often served as a mediator or buffer zone between these dominant forces. The Benjamite territory contained several important cities listed in Joshua 18:21-28. Among them were Jericho, one of the first cities conquered in the Promised Land; Bethel, a significant religious center; Geba, a strategic city in the mountains; and Gibeah, which would become the capital of Israel's first king. Perhaps the most significant of all was Jerusalem, then known as Jebus, located on the border between Benjamin and Judah. Jerusalem, although technically on the border, was primarily in Benjamin's territory. This fact would have profound implications for the future, as the city that David would eventually conquer and establish as the capital was largely within this small tribe's territory. The Temple Mount, where Solomon would later build the temple, was also mostly on Benjamite land. Thus, Israel's spiritual and political center would be linked to Benjamin's heritage, partially fulfilling the prophecy about dividing the spoil. During the period of the Judges, the tribe of Benjamin produced notable leaders who exemplified the warrior spirit prophesied by Jacob. One of the most prominent was Ehud, whose story is recounted in Judges 3:15-30. The text begins, "Again the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man, the son of Gera the Benjamite." Ehud confronted Eglon, the oppressive king of Moab, who had dominated Israel for 18 years. His left-handedness, literally described in Hebrew as restricted in his right hand, became a strategic advantage. When Ehud went to deliver tribute to Eglon, he hid a dagger under his garments on the right side, unusual as most carried weapons on the left side for drawing with the right hand. The guards, looking for weapons on the left side, did not detect the dagger. With cunning and bravery, Ehud secured a private meeting with Eglon, claiming to have a secret message. In Judges 3:21-22 we read, "Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and his bowels discharged. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed over it." This bold act was followed by a successful escape and the leadership of a revolt that freed Israel. Ehud's story perfectly exemplifies Benjamite qualities: tactical cunning, personal bravery, and a willingness to conduct daring attacks against seemingly superior enemies. His leadership ensured 80 years of peace for Israel, demonstrating not only the ability to devour the prey, but also to divide the spoil of peace and prosperity. Centuries later, when Israel demanded a king, God chose Saul, a Benjamite, as the nation's first monarch. In 1 Samuel 9:1-2 we read, "There was a Benjamite, a man of standing, whose name was Kish. Kish had a son named Saul, as handsome a young man as could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was a head taller than anyone else." The choice of a Benjamite to inaugurate the Israelite monarchy reflected both the tribe's strategic position and its warrior qualities. Saul possessed impressive physical qualities. He was tall, strong, and of noble appearance. Initially, he also demonstrated humility and military capability, leading Israel to significant victories against its enemies. His reign began with promise, fulfilling the prophecy about Benjamin devouring the prey. Unfortunately, Saul eventually succumbed to pride and disobedience, leading to divine rejection and the transfer of the kingdom to David from the tribe of Judah. One of the darkest chapters in Benjamin's history occurred during the period of the Judges, before the rise of the monarchy. Judges chapters 19 to 21 recount a series of horrific events that nearly led to the tribe's extinction. The story begins with an atrocity in Gibeah, a Benjamite city. A Levite traveling with his concubine stopped to spend the night in Gibeah. In Judges 19:22-25, we read how wicked men of the city surrounded the house where they were staying, and in an act of extreme violence abused the Levite's concubine throughout the night, resulting in her death. The Levite, in response, divided the woman's body into 12 parts and sent them to the 12 tribes of Israel, demanding justice. This shocking action mobilized all the tribes, who demanded that Benjamin hand over the perpetrators of the crime for punishment. In Judges 20:12-13 we read, "The tribes of Israel sent men throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, 'What about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now turn those wicked men of Gibeah over to us, so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel.' But the Benjamites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. Benjamin's refusal to hand over the guilty reflected a misguided, tribal sense of loyalty that overshadowed moral justice. This decision led to a devastating civil war. 3 successive battles took place, described in Judges 20:18-48. Surprisingly, in the first 2, the Benjamites, though vastly outnumbered, managed to defeat the combined forces of the other tribes, demonstrating their exceptional warrior skills. In the 3rd battle, however, Israel employed an ambush strategy. They lured the Benjamites out of their fortified cities and then set Gibeah on fire. The result was catastrophic for Benjamin. In Judges 20:46-47 we read, "So all who fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men who drew the sword, all of them men of valor. But 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they remained at the rock of Rimmon for 4 months." The tribe was reduced to just 600 men hiding at the rock of Rimmon, a devastating reduction that threatened the very existence of Benjamin. The situation was even more dire because the other tribes had sworn not to give their daughters as wives to the Benjamites, effectively condemning the tribe to gradual extinction. Realizing they were about to completely lose one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the other tribes sought a solution to preserve Benjamin. In Judges 21:6-7 we read, "The Israelites grieved for their fellow Benjamites. Today, one tribe is cut off from Israel," they said. "How can we provide wives for those who are left, since we have taken an oath by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage?" The measures taken to ensure the tribe's survival were controversial, including the abduction of young women from Jabesh Gilead, and later the capture of maidens during a festival in Shiloh. These actions, while ethically problematic, allowed the tribe to gradually recover from its near annihilation. Benjamin's complete recovery took generations, but eventually the tribe re-emerged as a vital part of Israel. When the kingdom divided, after Solomon's death, Benjamin made a crucial decision that would define its future. While the 10 northern tribes formed the Kingdom of Israel under Jeroboam, Benjamin remained loyal to the house of David and joined Judah in the southern kingdom. In 1 Kings 12:21, we read, "When Rehoboam arrived in Jerusalem, he mustered all, Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 able young men, to go to war against Israel and regain the kingdom for Rehoboam, son of Solomon." This loyalty to the house of David reflected both the geographical proximity to Judah and the shared use of Jerusalem as a religious and political center. Benjamin's decision to remain with Judah had lasting consequences. While the 10 northern tribes were eventually conquered by the Assyrians and largely lost their identity, Benjamin maintained its tribal cohesion even during the Babylonian exile. It essentially became part of the Jewish identity, the term Jew deriving from Judah, while still retaining an awareness of its distinct Benjamite lineage. During the exile period, 2 Benjamites played crucial roles in preserving the Jewish people. In Esther 2:5-7 we read, "Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin, named Mordecai son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai and his cousin Esther, both Benjamites, became instruments of God to save the Jews from the genocide planned by Haman." The story of Esther and Mordecai exemplifies how the tribe of Benjamin, even when reduced and in exile, continued to fulfill its prophetic role, fiercely defending its people like a wolf that tears, and later sharing the benefits of liberation, dividing the spoil. Mordecai's position as second in command in the Persian Empire also reflected the Benjamites' ability to occupy strategic positions of influence. Centuries later, at the dawn of the Christian era, another Benjamite would emerge with global impact. Saul of Tarsus, better known as the Apostle Paul, clearly identified with his tribal heritage. In Philippians 3:5, he writes about himself, "Circumcised on the 8th day, of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, in regard to the law, a Pharisee." This self-identification was not merely a biographical detail, but reflected how Paul understood his place in the divine plan. Paul saw his own life through the lens of Jacob's prophecy about Benjamin. Initially, as a persecutor of the church, he was like the wolf that tears, aggressively attacking Christians. After his conversion, he became the apostle who divided the spoil of grace and truth of the gospel to the nations. His personal transformation mirrored his tribe's historical pattern, from fierce warrior to distributor of blessings. Paul's contribution to Christianity is immeasurable. His writings make up nearly a third of the New Testament, and his theology laid the foundation for the Christian understanding of salvation by grace through faith. The fact that God chose a Benjamite to be the primary apostle to the Gentiles demonstrates the continuity of the divine purpose through generations. The small tribe continued to wield influence disproportionate to its size. In the prophetic and eschatological vision of the Book of Revelation, the tribe of Benjamin maintains its place among the people of God. In Revelation 7:8, when John describes the 144,000 sealed, he mentions, "From the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000. This inclusion confirms that from the divine perspective, Benjamin remains an integral part of the spiritual Israel until the end of times. Benjamin's presence in this apocalyptic vision is not merely a formality. Symbolically, it represents God's faithfulness to his promises. Even the smallest of tribes, the one that was almost exterminated, remains counted among the chosen people. It also reflects Benjamin's continued importance in the story of salvation, from its humble beginnings to its eschatological culmination. The continuity of Benjamin's role in the biblical story is remarkable. From the youngest son of Jacob to the apostle to the nations, this tribe demonstrated extraordinary resilience. It survived wars, exiles, and persecutions, maintaining its distinct identity and fulfilling its prophetic role in every generation. The enduring legacy of the tribe of Benjamin offers profound spiritual lessons. It demonstrates how God often works through the smallest and seemingly least significant to accomplish his greatest purposes. It reveals the divine ability to redeem even the most terrible mistakes, like the civil war that nearly wiped out the tribe, and transform them into opportunities for grace and restoration. The story of Benjamin, from beginning to end, is a testament to God's faithfulness to his promises. The blessing pronounced by the patriarch Jacob found its fulfillment through generations, not only literally in the military conquests of the Benjamites, but also spiritually in the lasting contribution of this tribe to the Jewish and Christian faiths. Of all of Jacob's sons, Benjamin held a unique place, the last born, whose arrival into the world cost his mother's life. From the tragedy of his birth to the glory of his legacy through figures like Samuel, Saul, Esther, Mordecai, and Paul, Benjamin's story remains one of the most remarkable examples of how God works in human history, turning weakness into strength and loss into lasting blessing. If this story touched your heart and expanded your biblical knowledge, please show your support by subscribing to our channel. Every subscription helps us continue producing quality biblical content. And don't forget to share this video with friends and family who could be uplifted by this powerful message. Click the subscribe button now and activate the notification bell to be alerted about our upcoming videos on biblical stories. Also, let us know in the comments which character or biblical story you would like us to cover in our next video. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life of Benjamin. May the lessons learned today remain in your heart and inspire your walk with God. See you in the next video.